Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Mary Ann Hensley. I'm the Vice President of Media Operations here at FreightWaves, and we're excited to present today's webinar in partnership with Visible Supply Chain Management. Today, we're going to be discussing what 2020 has in store and how carriers can work with their 3PL partners to combat the lingering volatility in the market. We will be hearing from Mike Foy, General Manager of the Logistics Division for Visible Supply Chain Management, as well as Patrick Allard, Senior Vice President for Retail Sales and Channel Partner Development for North America for Pitney Bowes. We'll also have a live Q&A with both speakers following the presentation. Before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. First, if you have any questions or technical issues throughout the webinar, you can reach out to our team via the chat button in your Zoom control panel. And finally, if you have questions that you would like to ask our speakers during the live Q&A, you can enter those through the Q&A button in your control panel, and we'll answer as many of those as we have time for. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and welcome Mike.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mary Ann. I just wanted to quickly give us a brief agenda of what we'll look at today, just to keep you posted a little bit. I'll introduce myself. Patrick will introduce himself and his company. We'll quickly just talk about just 3PLs in general, what the industry is doing today, what the visibility looks like, why you want to have a partner in the space, and then just a little bit of a summary. And then, as discussed already, we'll jump into some questions and answers. So just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Mike Foy, Executive Vice President of our Visible Supply Chain Management Logistics Division. My background is over 30 years in transportation in general. UPS, FedEx, Green Mountain Technology, iDrive Logistics, really with a specialty in sales and operations and accounting and finance technology, just kind of all of those particular areas. Brief introduction to Visible Supply Chain. As you can see on the slide, the marketing speak of who Visible Supply Chain is, but ultimately we're a company that through technology can design effective strategies for clients that include transportation, logistics, brokerage, fulfillment, even some custom packaging solutions for our customers. So we work with our clients in a number of ways to make sure that they can enhance their supply chain. With that, let me turn it over to Patrick to kind of introduce himself and Pitney Bowes a little bit.
Thank you, Mike. As Mike mentioned, I'm Patrick Allard, Senior Vice President of our Retail Sales and Channel Partner Development here at Pitney Bowes. Today, I oversee all the development of our partners, including Visible, as well as all the retailers and e-commerce companies that do business in North America with Pitney Bowes today. Previously, I served as the Vice President at Nugistics, where I was a member of the executive team, joined Nugistics when it was a startup in Austin, Texas, and spent 10 years there up until the acquisition where Pitney Bowes has acquired Nugistics in 2017. Before Nugistics, I spent 10 years at Yellow Freight and YRC Worldwide. Just a quick overview of Pitney Bowes. Pitney Bowes is coming up on its 100th year anniversary. For over 100 years now, we've actually been innovating and taking the friction and helping small business, enterprise business, and partners ship globally. We're really made up of two different divisions today. We have our SendTech division, which is really focused on data and sending mail and parcels for businesses of all sizes throughout the globe, and Commerce Services, which is made up of our Presort division, that is the largest work-share partnership with the USPS today. Does over 18 billion pieces of mail, which is our Presort division. And within Commerce Services, we have what was comprised of Nugistics and Borderfree, which makes up our cross-border capabilities, our fulfillment, 3PL capabilities, our parcel delivery and returns. At the end of the day, today, Pitney Bowes Commerce Services is the division within Pitney Bowes that is partnering with Visible. And I wanted to spend just a minute about how that partnership came together, just to set the stage on why we're on this call presenting today. So Pitney Bowes and Visible have doing business together for the last 5 years. The business partnership really came together as Pitney Bowes was searching for a great partner that also innovated with USPS to continue to take friction out of the digital shipping environment. So we leveraged Visible 5 years ago to stand up that solution, leveraging our capabilities on the digital mailing side as a PC postage provider and leveraging Visible in their relationship with USPS. However, as I mentioned 2 years ago, when the acquisition and logistics came to fruition, the complexities of the Pitney Bowes global e-commerce business really went to a whole nother level. Today at Pitney Bowes Commerce Services on our parcel delivery and returns operations, we're having the need and moving over 130,000 LTL and truckloads a year, with an additional 30 courier partners that we have to manage transportation throughout in order to deliver best-in-class parcel solutions for the end consumer. Today, Pitney Bowes Commerce Services is in the e-commerce business. We're in the business to help deliver best-in-class services to retailers, e-commerce companies, and partners to help improve that customer experience, help continue to lower total cost, but at the end of the day, we're here to help also drive revenue for our partners. So today, we're going to certainly come back and focus on some of those value of the partnership and why Pitney Bowes partnering with Visible has made the difference and will continue to help us go where we need to go in the future. Mike, I'd like to turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, as you can see through what Patrick talked about a little bit, there are a lot of reasons and a lot of value why somebody might use a 3PL solution. You know, sometimes in the space, 3PL is a dirty word, but really need to think about them as a partner, a strategic partner, and one that can help in many different areas. And so we're going to talk just briefly about the industry, and then we'll get into more depth in the Q&A and some of the things like that. But really, what can a 3PL do for you? How do they benefit your business? And why would you consider outsourcing to a partner or using a strategic partner as opposed to just doing it yourself? So really, to put it in perspective, the industry today is changing at a rapid pace. It's almost impossible for any one entity in order to keep up with all of the changes to technology, to legislation, and really to the changing competitive environment out there. And so with all of those changes, as I mentioned, it becomes almost impossible for one person to have just the view of their one single company and to be able to keep up with all that's needed. So what the advantage then of utilizing a company such as Visible Supply Chain or another 3PL is that you can kind of find a partner to help you mitigate some of those market trends that are out there. Partners like Pitney Bowes and ourselves really have that expertise that's needed, the technology that's needed, the broad view of the marketplace. As you heard Patrick talk about the number of clients that they service and the number of clients that we service, it provides an unprecedented view into the marketplace. So let's talk about that visibility for just one moment. Data is coming at us at a pace that's almost impossible to understand and to be able to decipher right now. The technology now is so fast-paced that it really allows you to make good business decisions if you're able to harness that information and you're able to take that speed and put it to your use. Let's think about this for a minute with a small analogy. Let's think about, for a moment that your business is on fire. I know that's not something that you want to think about, but you have a firefighter that is here to put out the fire. While it would be impressive to have a firefighter that has tremendous speed, that could climb the ladder faster than anyone else on his team, you know, somebody that has the stamina to be able to run up that ladder very quickly, it wouldn't do you much good if that firefighter climbed the ladder to find out that he was leaned up against the wrong building. That's where the importance of understanding what this data means and the data to kind of give us the visibility to be able to make sure that in your haste and the speed and all the information that's coming at us, that we're actually having somebody help ground us and make sure that our ladder's leaning up against the right building. If you take a look at the graph for a moment, it's indicative of the market that we live in, especially in the LTL and truckload freight brokerage world. As capacity increases, prices drop below the average line. As capacity decreases, we get the peaks where prices are higher. And so as a consumer, you're always faced with the challenge of, am I buying at the right price? You know, where am I in that cyclical process? Again, the problem for an individual consumer or an individual customer, if they're to do it on their own, they're really limited to only seeing their own data sets. The advantage of using a company like Pitney Bowes or Visible Supply Chain Management is that you now have the visibility across the entire market, not only through their extensive list of customers that they utilize, but because of technology tools that they purchase and that they utilize to be able to give a real view into the market as a whole, as opposed to that myopic view of that individual customer. At the end of the day, what you want is for that fire not to be lit in your building at all. And so for having a partner with the expertise to validate your data and to help identify problems on the front end, what you're getting is somebody that's going to help you identify a potential problem, ultimately removing that kindling and that fire starter so that the fires don't happen at all on your business. In addition to the visibility then, it's important to really have a partner that makes a real difference. As you explore doing something with a partner as opposed to doing it on your own, it's really important to distinguish between the difference between a partner and a vendor. At the end of the day, if you look at the triangle on the left, it is only sustainable if all three parties in the equation benefit. In other words, the customer needs to have benefit, the partner needs to have benefit, the carrier needs to have benefit as well. If any of these are out of balance, it ultimately creates a scenario where the market will fail. All you have to do is look at the recent news and see the unprecedented number of carriers that are going out of business today. And part of that is because in an effort to chase a price that's favorable, you end up driving the prices higher for everybody because the competition ends up going out of the market. So it's important to have a partner that has comprehensive and customized solutions, one that's able to help you mitigate all those changes that are taking place, but one that's also mindful of not only you, the customer, but mindful of the carrier and the other service providers as well. So the age-old question, when to switch? Many companies make the decision to give a portion of their business to 3PLs. Some companies make the decision not to ever give any of their business to 3PLs. But the question is, when is really the best time to consider utilizing a 3PL? And the reality is that time is now. So there's a few times when you consider utilizing a 3PL. When capacity is quite high, as it has been, and demand's been a little bit lower, as it has been in the first part of 2019, it's very enticing and very good to go directly with a carrier. Under that kind of a scenario, you can kind of get good rates. The problem with that, as capacity begins to tighten, for example, some of these carriers that are going out of business, as volume starts to pick up, as we approach peak and other things like that, prices inevitably begin to drive up. And we're kind of in that upward curve right now, as we discussed earlier in that graph. Right now, we're reaching that tipping point where carriers will reach a point that even though they've been willing to give you the business at the price they've been giving it to you so far, they will remove those prices that they've been given. And so now's the time to make sure that you're getting entrenched with a partner that has an extensive list of carrier offerings, that has an extensive list of partnerships, that has the ability to help you guarantee capacity when capacity becomes tight. And that time is actually right now in the marketplace. Why else would you partner with the 3PL? Patrick alluded to some of these reasons, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in the Q&A. But they have a level of expertise that is beneficial in helping your business. They're up on the latest labor laws and how they can impact you as a customer. They also have the ability to help you with multiple modes. For example, if you only utilize truckload carriers and you only work direct with truckload carriers, but your shipments may be better served in an LTL environment, it just limits your ability to be able to make the best decisions and to be able to drive your prices down. So that expertise, that multi-mode, many different carrier offerings, many different relationships allow you to make sure that you can maximize the best service offering that allows you to meet your customers' needs. Ultimately, as you look at a 3PL2, the question becomes, do you select somebody that has multiple offerings, somebody that can help you with parcel, with freight, with packaging, with fulfillment, or are you better off having somebody help you with a small niche and having multiple service providers? I mean, ultimately, that's the decision you as an organization needs to make. And part of that may depend upon your size and your complexity. There may be a scenario where each of those makes sense. Carriers like ourselves, providers like ourselves, very hands-on. We provide a lot of service offerings. We provide, as you note in the next bullet, 24/7, 365-day monitoring. If your business is not in need of those kinds of services, then pursue a different vendor or a different partner that will be able to help you in the way that your business is needed. But you want to make sure that you understand exactly what you're looking for so that you have the ability to really work together. In summary, as I started out the conversation a little bit, shippers sometimes fear that they give something else up by bringing in a third party. The reality is they don't give anything up and they get a little bit more. They get that expertise, they get that hand-holding, they get buying power, they get visibility into the market as a whole, and at the end of the day, they end up getting something that they could not do on their own. It's the proverbial scenario, and I think Patrick, Pitney Bowes, and Visible demonstrates this, that 1 + 1 = 3. And when you can reach that kind of a partnership, then you have the ability to really make a difference for you and your business.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Mike and Patrick as well. So just kind of following on to your discussion, can you share some of the top level challenges that you all have experienced in your partnerships and maybe some ways that you work to resolve those?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. This is Patrick speaking. So as I mentioned, we started the partnership on one side of the business with our digital postage, and as the acquisition in Nugistics came to fruition and Pitney Bowes took over that parcel delivery network that Nugistics had built, there was really a lot of challenges because at the same time we were bringing that parcel business and merging it together with our pre-sort mail business, and we had a lot of synergies between our 21 facilities, and we had some customer overlap. So we really went out in the market and we were actually trying to find a partner that would be a great fit to help us with these 130,000 plus LTL and truckload moves in between our facilities and from and to our customers' locations and DCs. So as you can imagine, anytime you take a partnership from one level and go to the next level, there's always going to be, some getting to understand the business. So I would say that the first thing and the first challenge was to make sure that Visible fully understood the Nugistics network, and as that came together with Pitney Bowes' pre-sort network, what was really needed and what was required. Pitney Bowes is servicing the largest retailers in the world, and as everybody knows, we are in the direct-to-consumer parcel delivery solutions business, and right now, holiday peak between Thanksgiving and Christmas was critical. So part of that initial challenge, Mary Ann, was really just making sure that Visible was up to speed and really understood our business, because what we were looking for was for Visible to become an extension of our network, an extension of our business to provide the level of service that we needed in order to deliver the best end consumer experience, but also the best experience for our retail partners.
Yes, absolutely. And looking kind of at the other end of the spectrum, can you share some successes that you all have been able to realize in your partnerships as well?
Sure, I'm happy to build right on that and let Mike pile on as he sees fit. So I would say that going from that initial engagement of bringing one another up to speed and getting Visible to fully understand what the requirements were and what we needed to deliver, I would say the immediate successes are really, I can think of 4 to 5 things that would be key successes. Number one is when you're in that direct-to-consumer parcel space and you need to deliver for the largest retailers in the world to deliver that best-in-class end customer experience, which means their packages are going to show up on time, and when you get to the holiday peak, that packages are delivered before Christmas, we needed a partner that was going to be reliable, that had the speed that we needed, that had 24/7 support, provided the visibility, because us as consumers, whether you're buying with Walmart or Amazon or any other retailer out there, you want to know where your package is at all times, and you want to know when it's going to be delivered. So we needed Visible in this partnership to deliver the visibility through our supply chain as we move those truckloads through our network and between our network and ultimately from and to our customers. And then we also needed the fifth thing that we needed was to see the overall value. And some of that had to be with the cost structure, but the overall value of those four things for the level of price that we were paying. So I'd say the immediate success, obviously took evolution to get to this point, but we're at a point now where those four things and the fifth thing of the total value proposition has been delivered on.
Yeah, Mary Ann, this is Mike. I'd like to kind of add to both of those points as well. I think from the potential negative standpoint, but ultimately turned out to be a positive, just reiterating what Patrick mentioned, communication is the key. Sometimes as a customer, you're used to doing something and you've done things the same way for so long that it's kind of second hat. It's sometimes difficult to communicate to somebody else what your needs are. And so occasionally, in an effort to run fast, certain pieces of information are left out, or certain pieces of information that are just common knowledge to the customer may not be common knowledge to the 3PL. So I think it would be critical then from a success standpoint to make sure that you have a consistent communication mechanism that's not reliant on late emails, whether that's ongoing conference calls, whether that's ongoing feedback, whatever the case may be. And then I think one of the other challenges potentially is just the biases that you might find internally. Many times these decisions are made at a strategic level and, to utilize a strategic partner. And sometimes the individuals whose job it impacts the most may not always know the whys as to why a decision has been made, and sometimes even feel a little bit threatened that perhaps this new company or this new partner is looking to put them out of their day-to-day job. So to Patrick's point, through communication, through the ability to be able to demonstrate successes, those go away pretty quickly over time. One thing I would say that was kind of intriguing and kind of interesting, and why it does become a little bit important to have a partner that can do multiple things. As Patrick mentioned, one of the most unique things about the relationship with Visible and Pitney Bowes is that it continues to expand over time. And when I say it continues to expand, because of their needs and their hyper desire to take care of their customer, it's actually led Visible to provide solutions that they didn't even offer a year ago. As our leadership teams have been in discussions with each other on how we could best service their customers, their opportunities have been uncovered that have allowed us to, for example, set up a sort facility that will allow Pitney to get a little closer to their customer with a little bit cheaper deliverable. Also, as we talked about earlier in the conversation, visibility has been a positive outcome of the partnership. One of Pitney's goals was to reduce the number of partners that they were utilizing. If you think about it, if you have 50 different partners, that means you're getting data in 50 different ways, and it becomes a little bit challenging to take that data and to merge it into one database that is an apples-to-apples comparison to really know how to do your business. By reducing and limiting the number of partners that they've had, it's allowed them to get bigger chunks of their data in a more consistent manner, which has allowed them to make better, more consistent decisions about their business. The other thing that I would say is a benefit not only for Pitney but for Visible as well. By utilizing the expertise of a third party, we've actually been able to improve our processes as well. As Pitney has been in the business of moving product for a number of years, we've been able to glean from their expertise the same way that they've been able to glean from our expertise. And as a result, we've been able to put processes in place that are actually better than either one of our companies could have done on our own. And then finally, as was alluded to by Patrick there at the end, it just has allowed, by our collective buying powers, it's allowed us to provide a cost structure that ultimately helps Pitney realize some of their goals of saving money and enhancing their profitability.
Awesome, and thank you both for that. Kind of moving along, we've referred to a couple of times to the peak retail season, which is now upon us. And as we all know, that can really be a logistical nightmare if you don't have the right partners and technologies in place to help manage some of that complexity. So shifting to the technology piece, what kind of technology should carriers look for in a 3PL to help improve efficiency and accuracy for their businesses?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start with this one, Patrick, if you don't mind.
Please do.
And then Patrick, of course, will be able to give some additional flavor on that also. Really, first and foremost, that visibility piece becomes the key. You know, as Patrick's talked about a little bit, when we're late with a truck, it's just not one late shipment. It's many hundreds, if not thousands, of shipments that are on that particular truck that are late, potentially leaving a bad experience for the Pitney Bowes customer. And so tracking becomes extremely important, and the speed and the timeliness of that tracking. So there are a number of different technology providers out there that can help with that solution. From Type trackers on the back of a trailer to MacroPoint to Forekites, a number of different solutions, but your technology solution provider ought to be able to help you manage real-time tracking if that's important to you. Obviously, for a retail provider such as Pitney Bowes, that real-time tracking becomes important. Then there needs to be the ability to be able to communicate with your internal systems. So most large 3PLs like ourselves, we provide transportation management systems, TMS systems. Many of our clients like Pitney are already going to have their own. So you're going to need somebody with the ability and the expertise to be able to integrate their solution with the customer solution so that they seamlessly pass the data back and forth to each other, so that whatever benefits are not lost by redundancy or extra key entry or lack of information. And then finally, although it doesn't necessarily fall into the technology realm, it does. How are you able to access somebody when there's an issue? So part of that technological solution is, do you have a provider that is available 365, 24/7, not just by name, but how do you actually physically get a hold of them? How do you communicate back and forth? And then how do you go to work to solve problems? And I think ultimately that's what a company like Visible has been able to provide from a technology standpoint to really kind of ease the processes, not to mention just the ease of being able to book a load. With the sheer number of loads that Patrick described, you've got to have a mechanism that makes it very easy to be able to actually generate a request for either an LTL or a truckload carrier. Patrick, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, Mike, just in the spirit of the fact that it is the holiday season right now, and we're in the middle of living through this together. You know, it's very fresh on my mind on, you know, what can go wrong and what we need to be planning for and how we're able to react to it. You know, at the end of the day, something will go wrong. It could be a weather storm that we're seeing right now in the mountain regions that's going to delay trucks. So it could be a retailer blows out its forecast, and frankly, that happens every peak season. We'll have several retailers that has a marketing promotion that the team that we were working with wasn't expecting, and all of those different variables, and something always will go wrong, but it's having a partner that has the technology and the infrastructure and the partnership with you that will be able to recover quickly. And some of that is technology focused, being able to be proactive and be able to book additional loads when a retailer exceeds a forecast, or if there's a weather issue and you've got delays, being able to be proactive from a monitoring standpoint and put us at Pitney Bowes in a position to proactively communicate to our retail partners that there are delays, that their end consumer packages could be affected. Those are absolutely critical to having a successful peak. So it really is everything that Mike says, just stated, is really bundled in on how we can be in a position to be proactive and also be able to recover quickly when something happens, because it absolutely will.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit too, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One thing that's allowed us to dial in our technological solutions to help somebody like Pitney, they are crystal clear on what their service level expectations are. And I think it's really important for a customer considering using a 3PL to make sure they know exactly what the expectations are, to know exactly what success looks like. That way, it's very easy to have meaningful, actionable conversations about, rather than pointing fingers as to what went wrong, but we have a scorecard that allows us to talk common language to identify how we can improve, and so that an error that was preventable does not occur in the future.
All right, perfect. And last question from me before we move on to the audience Q&A. So those of you listening in, please be sure to enter your questions for Mike and Patrick through the Q&A button if you've not done that already. As providers, what are some of the greatest benefits you feel that 3PLs can bring to their customers?
Well, this will be a little self-serving, but I will give you my opinion. This is Mike again. One of the biggest benefits, candidly, that a 3PL provides to a customer is a peace of mind and a good night's sleep. If you think about all those many moving parts that Patrick talked about, and Pitney Bowes, as well as all of our other customers, even if they're significantly smaller, as Patrick talked about right now, there are so many potential issues between legislation, between weather, between other things like that, simple things like a flat tire or something like that that you just cannot plan for. By having a partner that has the staffing and the visibility and the bandwidth and the partnerships available to them, recovery becomes so much quicker and so much less painful. So when that carrier has a flat tire, for example, rather than poor Patrick or one of his colleagues getting woken up in the middle of the night to say, hey, this guy's got a flat tire, they have the confidence of being able to sleep, that we're monitoring that if necessary, we're notifying their client of the delay, if there will be one. Worst case scenario, we're finding another vehicle where we can transload and get that product to the customer on time. We're communicating with companies like Pitney to explain to them what's going on so that we can make good business decisions at lowest cost impact early on in the stream. So I think that's one of the very biggest benefits that you get, is just the peace of mind of knowing that you've got additional players on your team, additional levels of expertise on your team, additional hands on deck, so to speak, so that you're not carrying the load yourself. And you can concentrate on your core business and being experts at what you do, and allow a partner that has expertise in other areas to help take some of the load.
Perfect. And first question from the audience. In your 3PL agreement, what are the most important KPIs you monitor, and are they dialed into your agreement? Also, are the savings targets also dialed into the contract?
Yeah, from Pitney Bowes' perspective, as we went out to market and searched for the right partner, and certainly ended up expanding our partnership with Visible in this capacity, we were really focused on again, that reliability and speed, which in our world, speed is SLAs. So as we measure from when we pick up packages from our actual individual parcels from our retailers' docks and deliver them to the end consumer, there's a large node in the network that is now managed by Visible on moving those full truckload and LTL moves. And it's very critical that we hit each of these timings within the SLA between the facilities, so that way we can inject into the couriers and ultimately to the post office. So we have a very dynamic routing SLA guide. So that was number one as far as what needed to go into the agreement and what we were going to be monitoring, because without that, it just wouldn't work. The uptime, as far as the 24/7 coverage, and especially during the time of the year that we're in right now with peak, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, we needed a commitment, and that was absolutely contracted through this relationship. And then clearly on the cost side, and having a structure that was going to work for us to not only manage the business we have today, but be able to scale the business. Because again, we're in the e-commerce space that's growing double digits every year. We needed a partner that would be able to continue to scale and had the ability to get the capacity in the market that was needed for us to scale our business the way that it was. So it was really those main core things that we were factoring in.
And so
Absolutely.
to kind of answer that question a little bit further, if I could, Mary Ann, it does depend a little bit on each individual client. Obviously, in Pitney's case, speed, reliability, accessibility are critically important, and as such, we've got that language in the agreement. We have expectations in the agreement so that both sides know what success looks like and could be agreed to on the front end, and then our conversations become meaningful. Some of our clients, speed's not quite as important. Cost might be more important, and so there might be a little bit more focus on the cost, and then the strategy and the discussion becomes around how do we help maximize your product but still meet acceptable service levels to get the product where it needs to be. I think just to piggyback on this question a little bit as well, a 3PL provides significantly more savings than what could ever be quantified in a cost statement. The reality is, if you're paying $500 for a load today and tomorrow you're paying $400, that's pretty easy to quantify, and that's some of the information that we talk about with a customer like Pitney Bowes. A 3PL, though, provides a tremendous amount of soft costs, additional tracking and tracing, technology savings through a TMS. A good 3PL will go much further upstream than the shipping process, where they'll identify bottlenecks within your order processing. Take truckload as an example. If your truck is ready to be picked up today and you notify anyone, a carrier direct, or you use a 3PL, that it needs to be picked up today, your price will be dramatically more expensive than if you were aware that that pickup was going to happen 3 days ago. So it's that kind of expertise and other savings that a true partner 3PL will look to uncover and look to find, rather than just identifying a savings from a cost standpoint. But yes, to answer the question, depending on the client, all of those are put into an agreement and in many cases committed to.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Next question. Shippers usually don't want to commit to a 3PL when demand is low because demand is low. How can we help shippers see that this is the best time to establish that relationship?
Yeah, it's a great question, and certainly the dilemma that we face. If you think about that graph that I showed earlier, the long peaks and the long valleys, the true advantage of utilizing a 3PL is that you minimize those peaks and valleys. Instead of massive peaks and massive valleys, you provide a consistent level of normalcy for a client. So many of our customers that will commit to using us for a year, let's talk about truckload in particular, we're able to give them a year-long truckload price. So that allows them to establish budgets. That allows them to establish kind of a commitment. But more importantly, it allows them, because inevitably capacity is going to shrink, inevitably going direct, the carrier, even though they tell them they won't, will let them go if somebody else is willing to give them more money for that same truck. Inevitably, we're able to establish, in some cases, contractual relationships with those larger firms because of our volume, because of the amount of volume that we have, which allows that customer to still get that really good low price even when the market's gone out of whack. So in many ways, you could look at a 3PL as a little bit of an insurance policy, where you have a fixed cost now, you know what that's going to look like, you know that your costs are predictable, and you're not going to be left in a lurch when that capacity rises. Shout out to FreightWaves and Sonar. As you look at all of the market data that they provide, the fluctuations are rapid and they are significant. And so, to be completely truthful, without the kind of tool like Sonar or without the kind of expertise of a broader market, you just don't have the timeliness to be able to figure out when the market's changing. And so while that customer is taking advantage of what they think is a lower rate, the market might have ticked up for a month and they might not even know it, and by then they're kind of caught without some options. So it is the challenge of the 3PL, but you just have to kind of show them the value over time of the peaks and valleys being eliminated.
Perfect. And what factors would you recommend to include in an upcoming RFP for LTL or FTL services? And how would you weight those accordingly?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of restate some of the ones because it's really the same answer on what was most important was really how we framed it up. So my answer really won't be any different on that reliability and speed and 24/7 support, the technology capabilities, and ultimately the overall value, which factors into that cost equation. Mike might have some more just from his experience across multiple clients of Visible's.
Well, I would echo what you say. I think what's critically important if you're going to go out and do a bid is to make sure that your SLEs, your service level expectations are the priority, not the cost. So lead with your service level expectations. If it's time's critical like Patrick's, well, that's going to lead to a different set of resources and a more true cost of what the bid will be. If yours is a little bit more flexible, then again, that allows for somebody to provide you true information. Unfortunately, what happens in the industry, shocking, right? Especially if the SLEs are not there and it appears to be a price-driven bid, people will end up bidding carriers that may not be sufficient to meet your service level needs. And if the service level needs are not spelled out, what happens quite commonly is somebody gives you an unrealistic low number, or they build their entire bid on less time critical carriers. And so you think you're buying one thing when in fact you need to buy another, and you go to all the time, effort, and energy of a bid only to find out that you're not getting the service level that you were looking for. And now you don't have a real way to compare back those other bidders to find out what a fair price was. So always lead with the service level expectations, and then the pricing itself will follow.
Okay, great. And Mike, I believe this question is for you. Do you have a presence in Canada or plans to expand to Canada?
So it's a great question, and it really depends on each of the individual facets of our business, to be completely truthful. So we do have partnerships with carriers to and from Canada. We're definitely able, from a truckload and an LTL standpoint, to move freight. We are not a freight forwarder, so that what that means is I'm not clearing your product through customs, but I do have the ability to move a product from the United States to Canada and vice versa, as long as you have a forwarding partner or a customs broker to clear your product.
Okay.
Or within Canada itself. We do not today have fulfillment houses in Canada. We do not today have a parcel offering intra-Canada, but we do have partnerships.
Okay.
We do have partnerships with Canada Post and DHL, which allow us to help that parcel carrier. But again, it's through partnerships. But yes, we do have that capability.
All right. Perfect. And how much flexibility in the form of customization can be expected from a 3PL? Some examples they provide are personalized labeling, unique packing lists, and things like that.
I'm happy to jump in on that one. And the interesting thing here between Pitney Bowes and Visible is we actually both have some fulfillment operations, so we can both answer the question. It's the one area in our partnership where we have a little bit of overlap, but continue to complement one another in a major way. From a Pitney Bowes perspective, what we're doing is really servicing that true mid-market e-commerce company. And if you think about a mid-market e-commerce company, they're spending all their time and money and effort on their brand and building that brand awareness with their end consumer. So we take great pride in our ability to personalize and customize that opening the box experience. So we're really focused on that perfect order fulfillment, being able to customize the packaging and make sure that each of these mid-market e-commerce companies has a great brand experience with their consumer. And throughout that parcel journey, in leveraging Visible in between to move our parcels between our facilities and ultimately into the post office to get delivered, we have that great parcel network. And then if there's a return necessary, we have that returns logistics solution that we also use Visible in the middle of, in the post office on the front end for. And when those returns get back to the distribution center and our fulfillment centers, we have the opportunity and expertise to service that return. But tremendous amount of flexibility, very brand forward, and that's really a differentiation that Pitney Bowes is offering, and we've got Visible as a great partner within that network.
And I would concur with Patrick 100%. The initial response on the Visible side to how much should you expect that customization, 100%. I think what's critical as you look for a fulfillment partner, do they know who they are? What I mean by that is we are not a fulfillment partner for all customers. And some that try to do that are then left with a little bit less flexibility and a little less ability to serve. So we kind of know what our niche is, and within that niche, to Patrick's point, customer's king. It's all about the customer experience. It's all about creating an experience that they can't produce at their own at the price that they need to produce. It's about providing other complementary solutions such as parcel pricing that they may not have even known existed, or LTL or freight pricing that they never even knew they needed, that allows them to take that customization, but also add them a level of expertise and buying power that they couldn't get on their own either.
Great. And when it comes to 3PL partnerships, what would you say are the most important technological capabilities that 3PLs provide within those relationships? And what are you primarily hoping to improve through those technologies?
Well, we talked about the tremendous amount of data that's out there in the market and the visibility. I think what we're primarily looking for, our customers are primarily looking for, how do they tap into that visibility into an actionable way? So somebody's going to have to be looking for a way to be able to ship their product and have everything associated with that electronically stored in a way that they can get that information quickly. Bills of lading, customs documents, inventory sheets, whatever that case may be. So there needs to be the ability to be able to drill down to an individual shipment quickly and understand what's participating in that. Our clients need that actionable business intelligence information. And so we're able to aggregate large amounts of information for them and provide them reporting then that allows them to see at a quick glance what it is that they're missing. We provide technology solutions that allow our customers to be able to do their operations in a quicker way. We have a particular client like Pitney Bowes that has a lot of product that moves during peak, and they have as many as 50 to 100 trailers at any given time in their yard. And so one technological solution that we provided for them was an electronic form, for lack of a better way, of letting them know at any given time what the trailer number was that was associated with a load and where it sat in their yard. Now that seems like a little thing, and it seems like an odd thing that a 3PL would be involved in, because don't brokers just help with the price, and don't they just help get the product picked up and delivered? No, that was one of those solutions that made a tremendous difference for our client, and a technological solution that we were able to provide that ultimately allowed to that greater cost savings that we talked about, because we were able to help them find their trailers quicker. We were able to help them make decisions on timeliness of when the trailer needed to be picked up, so that they could actually, we could on their behalf negotiate the most favorable price. So I think just anything around track and trace, I think anything around business intelligence, and I think anything around operational improvement is ultimately what you can expect a 3PL provider to assist you with. And it's important to note too, I should say, not all do. And I don't mean that as a slight. Some 3PLs or some brokers focus purely on a price play. That's their only value add, and they add that value add through technological solutions that allow it to make it easy for you to choose between different rates. If that's all you need, there's some good providers out there that can do that for you. If you're needing the additional pieces that I talked about as far as visibility interpretation, reporting, then that type of a carrier, a 3PL partner, typically charges add-ons for that kind of white glove or additional service, and then you'll find over time them not to be quite as competitive. So it really, again, is knowing about what it is that you need and what kind of a provider can help you get the technology that you need to run your business.
Excellent.
If I may, Mary Ann, sorry to cut you off. Just piggybacking on the previous question, though, I think it's one that has the flexibility to do what you need as opposed to having their suite of services that you must use. I think that's a hallmark of Visible, and I think a hallmark of Pitney is tell us what you need, and we'll rally our solutions to provide you what you need, as opposed to saying, hey, this is what we offer, you've got to use what we offer.
Okay, perfect. And we've got just a couple more here. How can 3PLs leverage themselves against some of the newer carriers entering the marketplace?
I'm not quite sure if they're talking about LTL or truckload. I'm assuming truckload. The truth be told, I don't see you leveraging yourself against carriers. I think it's more of creating partnerships that are mutually beneficial with the carriers. So I think as a 3PL, if you provide them technological solutions as well, being the carrier, if you provide them consistent, steady loads, if you take advantage of the technologies that's out there to allow for load matching and other things like that, where you can help the carrier maximize their own profits, going back to the triangle that we had earlier, I think if you take the mentality of how do we help each other help the customer, I think ultimately it leads to more sustainable opportunities than an us versus them mentality. Look, there are times when going direct with a carrier make total sense. There are times when utilizing 3PL exclusively makes total sense. Often the clients that we deal with, there's a balance and there's a mix, and you know, your flexibility and your ability to work within the parameters that the customer needs, and then being transparent and honest and delivering what you say you're going to honest, ultimately provides a scenario where we can all play together and we can all win together.
Okay, perfect. And good answer to that. One more question, it looks like, that is appropriate to kind of wrap us up here today. What are the key differentiators you're finding in the market which help certain 3PLs stand apart and drive value for shippers? And what should shippers consider and take into what should shippers consider when choosing a 3PL provider?
I'll give Mike a little break here, and I'll start this one and let him finish us off here. Yeah, so as I mentioned, you know, when you're searching for a true partner, you really need that partner to want to take the time and want to become an extension of your business in order to deliver that experience, that speed, that reliability, whatever your end goal is. So the only way that we see any 3PL, and why we chose Visible, is a partner that was truly going to understand your business, truly become a partner, and have buy-in from the executive level all the way down to the execution people on the team that are going to support the relationship. For me, that is the only way that these 3PLs are able to differentiate, if they're willing to go and put all the chips on the table and go all in with a shipper or with a partner, because it's not easy to find that in the market, frankly. There's a lot of companies out there that have certain niches that they're really good at, maybe a piece of technology, maybe it's just rates, but finding a true partner that will understand your business, understand what is at stake, and truly willing to partner in a way that's going to be a true extension of your company all the way through the customer experience, and that journey is critical.
Excellent.
Mike?
Anything to add to that, Mike?
Just ultimately, that's what we try to do. Like I say, there are different 3PLs out there, and you just have to find somebody that kind of meets those needs. Philosophically, at Visible, we'd rather have fewer, better clients, you know, than to try to be the end all for everybody. I think to Patrick's point, if we can be transparent with what the needs are, if we can fully understand that we're partners, that we're not vendors, that we only win if everybody wins, it allows for those unique synergies like we've had. And like I say, with a good customer like Pitney Bowes, we've ended up creating parts of our business that candidly we didn't even know were going to be parts of our business a year ago because Pitney needed them. And we felt like we had a level of expertise and ability that we could invest and create that need that they had. So I think if you've got both a client and a partner that are willing to work together, as Patrick said, at the strategic levels, I don't think there's anything that can't be accomplished.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much, everyone listening. And that is all of the time that we have for today. So we appreciate you taking the time to be with us this afternoon. Thank you to Visible Supply Chain Management for partnering with us on today's presentation. And of course, thank you to Mike and Patrick again for sharing your insights with us today. We will be sending out a link to the recording of this webinar. So if you'd like to share it with your colleagues or listen again, you'll be able to do that. And you'll be receiving that through the same link that you used to register today. We appreciate you being here and hope you'll join us for another webinar again soon. Have a great afternoon.